Here we go. Welcome everyone to July's Blackmere Live, where we'll be discussing radical bravery in the workplace. We'd like to introduce our Blackmere founder and CEO, Domini Clark. Domini is the CEO of Blackmere Consulting, which she founded in 2011. She leads executive recruitment across a variety of industries with a functional focus on cybersecurity and data science. The company is driven by Domini's commitment to serving clients and making a powerful impact through intelligent connections. Her expertise, experience, and passion remain key ingredients in Blackmere's continued success. Under Domini's leadership, the Blackmere team specializes in difficult-to-fill critical hires, including executive placement, cybersecurity research, information technology, data science, and energy-related technical leadership. She is based in Idaho Falls, Iowa, or not Iowa, Idaho, where she lives with her two amazing daughters. Okay, and since we've broken the ice with that flub, Jen, I realize I haven't asked you. Do you prefer to go by Jennifer Mota? Is it Mota?
It's okay. You can go by Mota or Jen. It's all right. I go by both.
Great.
Yeah,
okay,
it's all right.
Great.
Roll with whatever is easier. Many know me as Mota, as just Mota, and many know me as just Jen. So
that's awesome. That's great.
All right.
All right. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce our guest. Jen Mota is a senior vice president at MFA Financial Inc., where she is the head of human resources and the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion. For over 15 years, Mota has been a strategic HR business partner and culture leader, balancing the current needs of organizations while staying focused on the future. Passionate about gender equality, Mota is a New York co-chair for the 50-50 Women on Boards, the leading global education and advocacy campaign for driving gender balance on corporate boards. Mota is on the board of directors for Uptown Stories, an organization dedicated to inspiring kids of a diverse community to voice their stories through writing. As an official member of the Forbes HR Council, Mota contributes as a thought leader amongst her peers. She is a born and raised New Yorker, a mom to two young boys, and the lucky wife to her best friend of over 23 years. Welcome, everyone, and I'm going to just log off here and let you guys take it.
Thank you. Thank you for that intro.
Then I have to tell you, in hearing some of the stuff that you've been doing, I got chills. Your work professionally, but also your work on boards and with underprivileged youth. Holy moly, how are you finding the time to do all of this?
Easy. You just don't sleep.
yeah, I know. Who needs sleep? Ariana Huffington has a lot to say about that, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a lie to say that it's easy. It's not. It's hard, and it's a balancing act, and it's a shift when you focus on one thing. Other things take a back seat, and then they take turns being in the front seat, and then other things take a back seat. And I think to think that you could have everything being in the front seat and you can focus on everything at the same time is just not. It's not reality. It's just you can't do it.
It doesn't work.
And
I know
it takes a turn. Everything has to take a turn. Kids included, hubby, work, everything. Everything has to take a turn.
And I can't do it on my own. If I don't have great support people around me in personally, professionally helping shore up the.
Yeah. I have amazing people that I work with in every single section of all those different aspects of my life, whether it be at MFA, whether it be at home. I mean, we have a running joke that our house is like Grand Central Station because we have just so many people coming and going. So, yeah.
But without that support, and what I realize is that I also have to be that support too. I can't just utilize it all the time. I have to be it for others too. Yeah. So you have a pretty great story, and I want you to talk about your career, kind of where you started, because you started with very large organizations and have now gone into creating this diversity and inclusion program with a smaller organization and doing it from scratch. So walk me through all of that.
Sure. So I started actually my career path in a completely different space, in a completely different place. When I graduated like any kid out of school, you think, oh, okay, well, I got a degree in marketing, so I'm going to go get a marketing job. And I did. I was in pharmaceutical marketing for 3 years and it was great, but I was bored out of my mind. And I was like, I can't see myself do this.
Yeah.
And people used to tell me all the time, like, you'd be great in HR. You'd be great in HR. And I was like, and I had also graduated in organizational behavior. But at that point, my exposure to HR was the lady I give my vacation slip to. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not doing that, right? But I went in to interview at Credit Suisse, and I was there to actually, ironically, interview for one job. And as I'm interviewing for this job, the recruiter says to me, oh, no, wait, that job got filled. I think you'd be great for this job. And I'm like, what have I been talking to you about for the last half hour? And she's like, you need to be in HR. Just talk to this team. You said, whatever. So I did. I was like, you know what? Let's
Why not?
Let's toss this up to chance. Let's go. Let's roll with it. Everybody keeps telling me this. I got the other side of my degree was this. Let's do it. Right. So I did. I got the job on the spot. I kind of worked my way up the ranks. I was at Credit Suisse for 5 years. I learned a lot because it was during the downturn of the economy with the market crashing, with the mortgage crash and all that. So I learned a lot fast. So even though it was only 5 years, it was 10 years worth of knowledge I feel crammed into 5.
Sure.
And then I got an opportunity to come to MFA. And at first I was scared by the opportunity because I couldn't understand how one person was supposed to do it all, right? I couldn't understand how, coming from a place of where Credit Suisse was, HR was a couple hundred people deep, and now I was supposed to be this one-stop shop. Like, it just blew my mind. I didn't understand it. It scared the bejesus out of me. And I had another job opportunity at the exact same time that I debated between. And that one was more what I knew along the lines of the world of CS. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go with the MFA gig. It scares the crap out of me.
I'm going to jump off this cliff. And I find the net.
Sound decision making. So, but it was the best decision I could have made. I love, in the beginning, there were moments where I was like, oh my God, what did I do? But it was absolutely the best decision I could have made. So I created an HR space from scratch. The story that I tell is, when I arrived here, the HR space was a tarp that was stapled to the side of a tree and it was like flapping in the wind. And, I wanted to build a proper space. I wanted to build walls and a home and running water and electricity. And I wanted the person who came in after me to just, want to change the drapes and the carpets and criticize my, wall color, Right. But they would never know what used to exist in that place.
It was just a tarp flapping in the wind.
Yeah, they would, like, good, you have no idea, good for you that all you have to do is criticize, the color of walls and carpets and, never mind the dead plant in the corner. You do your thing when you get here, So, and that's what sort of built. And a part of that, a wing or a room of that has been starting a diversity, equity, and inclusion department. And that came very organically. I work in finance. I work in a small finance shop. And, I have often found myself being the only, if not woman in the room, for sure, the only minority in the room. Obviously, the combo of both, of woman and minority in the room, very often. So it kind of came from a place of just like organic need. And there was, other women in the organization that kind of felt the same sentiments as me. And we started a women's group, like a women's network within the company. We called it WAM, for Women at MFA. And we started, just kind of real grassroots, like, doing, events. And I got, the CEO on board to support it and give us money and funding and space and time, et cetera. And, it built real traction, and we realized that there was a need beyond just kind of the women, and it was fun and it was interesting. And I realized that I loved it, and
in talking to you about this, it sounds like you saw early on that you could approach this a few different ways. And I think a lot of leadership teams walk into programs like this thinking, okay, we're just going to get criticized up one side and down the other. But instead of doing that, it sounds like you took this very organically grown group and made it an obvious benefit to the leadership team. How did you do that?
So we at first, I pride myself in that I try to have relationships across the organization. So even though I'm the head of HR, I report to the CEO, my counterparts are the other heads of the other departments, the CFO, whatever, CIO. I really go out of my way to know everybody, because I feel like if that's where I get my best information. Like I could sit here in a bubble and guess at what I think employees need, right? But I just feel like that's not going to be very accurate, right? Like I feel like I need to know the people that I'm supposedly affecting, and if to know what really they need, right? So I would go talk to them. I would sit down, like, what's up? What's on your mind? What bugs you? What do you want? What do you want to develop? And it doesn't always have to be this like pointed sit down conversation of like, let's have a development conversation or let's have a DE&I conversation. It can be just like, what's up? What's on your mind? Like, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? And I think what's interesting that in the workplace, especially in corporate, especially in finance, emotions are something that is like soft stuff and thrown
Don't do those things.
Yeah. And to me, emotions are data, it's data, it's information, it's
navigation.
Data points. Right. So it's kind of like, okay, what brings about frustration? What brings about, happiness? What brings about, what's that tied to, so that I can then figure out, okay, well, what do I improve? What do I, maybe this was a waste of time, so focus on this area, whatever, so I try to go about it that way. So that's how it comes about organically, is because I'm literally just talking to everybody to say, what do you want? What do you like? What don't you like? What sucks? What doesn't suck? What would you like to see?
Well, and I love that idea of taking emotions and turning them into data points. They're not separate. Emotions are navigation, and when people are angry, that's when they leave. So if you can figure out what's making them angry, you can help retention.
Right. It's not something to be kind of ignored or, oh, that seems too messy and hairy to deal with. I think it's information. It's valuable information because it's charged. Right. So it's like people make decisions based on that charged information, so it's sort of like, okay, well, let's see what's there. Let's see what is charging you. And is it a good charge or a bad charge? And can I help those good charges? Can I dissolve, help assuage those bad charges?
Yeah.
Like, what do you need? Right. So that's what we would do. And then we would build accordingly. So we would ask them, like, what are some of the topics that you really want? And, something that came up a lot was around confidence and about being able to speak up and having like the confidence to speak up. And I watched this it's very famous TED Talk, Amy Cuddy, with the poses and the whatnot and the stress test. And I kind of quasi recreated it in the environment that we had capable. And it worked. It really worked. And they got to see it, live, because we recreated it in person, live, during a lunch and learn, I think an hour and a half or something like that. And it worked, and it kind of just got the ball rolling, because then it was something visceral, right? It was something that they weren't just talked at. It's like you saw bits of the clip, they heard me kind of talk, but then they got up and did things, and they got up and posed, and they felt silly and they laughed, but that's all emotional, connection. So it kind of sinks in more, because to this day, you still walk the hallways and be like, oh, remember that time so-and-so posed like this, and and they'll make jokes about it, but they remember. You know what I mean? And it's stuck, as to a lot of sometimes, you sit through a lunch and learn, you sit through a training, and it goes, boop, boop, boop.
Right. Right. Words don't teach, but a pose can.
Yeah, because it got them moving, it got them physically and kind of engaging with the content. But it was enough of a spark to get the conversation going, and it continued, versus it being, okay, you sat through this TED Talk and it just died there. Right. So it was then, okay, well then how do we develop women? How do we have these conversations? A lot of people didn't even know that was an issue for women, that they felt like they couldn't speak up. And you're kind of like, how do you not know that this is an issue for women? But they don't, so that was a good thing. Yeah. So that's how things kind of came about organically, and then we did things organically. And then I tried to, we did so much grassroots stuff, like hands-on, that I then said, you know what, let me back up a little bit and get kind of an academic angle to this too. So that's when I went to Cornell to get the certification in DE&I, because I was like, all right, I've done like the hands-on grassroots approach. Now let's try adding on, an academic layer to kind of understand this from a different angle, right? Because I've got the experience, the lived experience. Yeah. I've got kind of my way of, grassroots hacking through it. Let's get a different perspective going too.
Okay, so I'm curious, which way resonated with your people better? your organic grassroots experience or bringing in the academic piece?
You know, what's funny is that the for sure the grassroots stuff, had a more in your face impact because I'm physically and literally in their face. Like I'm doing an event, I'm leading something, or I'm taking them somewhere, there's like a physicality almost to it, right? When we're doing the grassroots organic approach. But to get the real shift in mindset, right? You need a certain amount of almost like credibility. You need a certain amount of, where's this, like, back this for me with science, or back this for me with facts, back this for me more than just that feel good event, right? So that it doesn't land in this space of fluffy. Yep. Because we had fun while you were learning, it's like, back this for me with something. So it's easy to say, oh, it had a bigger impact organic because you can physically see them laughing, talking, giving you feedback in real time that they loved it, asking for the next one. But when you then are having conversations offline, outside of the event, one-on-one, you can see them thinking about or changing their language about how they're talking about certain concepts because you gave them that kind of like knowledge end of it things too, right? Because there's very smart people here. They're not going to just kind of buy it, selling it in one way. It needs to be multiple prong approach.
Well, and you have talked a couple of times in our conversations about being really good. You're very insightful about how you message information to different people. When you're working with people who understand and appreciate quantifiable results, you give them quantifiable results.
Yeah.
And you talked about even approaching different personality styles. Talk to me about that too.
Yeah, so that's not something I learned the hard way, because I am pretty clearly a certain way. I am a talkative, lively, chatty person. And not everybody who works in finance is that way. So there's some people who just want the facts and give me an Excel spreadsheet and shut up and go away. And I didn't know that at first. So I would irritate the heck out of these people, right? Because I would come to them and want to talk to them about why these numbers are this way and how the spreadsheet came together and what this all means and blah, blah, blah. And they would just be like, give me the data and shut up, right? And I would irritate them and I would shoot myself in the foot because I wasn't delivering the information the way that they want the information delivered. Right. So after a while, I understood like, okay, this person just needs the spreadsheet, give them 1 or 2 points of data and then walk away. Yeah. Some other people, if they're motivated by like perfection, then you would have to, spin things like perfect places or really great places do things like this, and we're really great too, but we're just a little bit.
We can be perfect.
We can be perfecter. Yeah. Like we can be, just, and that would be the way to kind of get them to, step it up a notch or change certain things, and other people, they need that emotional connection first. You need to establish the emotional relationship first before you can ever talk to anything, business in any way, shape, or form related. So you have to put in the work to establish that relationship first. Because if you hit them straight with, I need this, I need that, blah, 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 and you haven't asked them about their day and their kids and their dogs, like you're not getting anywhere with them.
They don't trust you. They're not going to open up to you, right?
Yeah, they're not going to open up. And then you're not going to get down to the heart of what it is that they need, which is really what I need as an HR person to be able to then serve them. Which is kind of ironic because it's like, I need you to tell me what you need so I can help you.
Well, and it's interesting. We hired someone to do some consulting work with us. And the first time ever I have had this question asked, he said, how do you prefer I approach you with new information? And I thought, well, shoot, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. But there is a way that you get into different people different ways. Yep. Knowing that about ourselves is really important because having that question, I actually had to say, I'm not sure I have a great answer for you right now. Let me think about that. Yeah. Being that kind of an intuitive person who can read that to start, I'm pretty sure that's the secret of your success.
there's tools out there to help you though. I mean, I would say, yes, there's a certain level of intuitiveness, but I mean, like one of the trainings we've done around here on more than once is the DISC training, just because it's so easy. It's kind of like easy to grasp. It's a simple concept. And if you actually practice it, it's really helpful. I know that it kind of started, like, it's like I already had a certain level of intuition, and then that kind of just added like the skill, like an actual skill on top of the intuition.
Quantifiable result.
Yeah. So now it's, so now it's kind of like, I'm dead late. I'm just kidding.
That's right. I have the tools and the intuition. So one of the questions that I love, because I think it's so vitally important, is about failure. I know I have failed 100 million times, and I've learned way more from that than I ever have from the successes. I have to think that in creating a home with the flapping tarp in the wind, you had to have run into some things where you went, shoot, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. And I just turfed it. Talk to me about that process, how that works for you internally.
Sure. I mean, for sure, there has been many times where when you turn the lights on in the living room, the toilet flushed. Nobody knows why. You still don't know why. Dishwasher turns on by itself. I'd say it's a ghost. I have no idea. I've chalked it up to, paranormal activity at this point. Yeah, no, for sure. And it's, it's there's so many lessons that come from failure, because it's sort of like, well, what ball did I drop? Why did I fail? Like, is this actual failure, or is it just that it's just not perfect, right? And then I think also when you're a super driven person and you want results, potentially what you've achieved is still actually good, but because you've defined perfection as this, and it only looks like this, but you landed here, it's not that it's necessarily failure. It's just not this, right? So it's also kind of assessing things and seeing things for what they really are. So it's like taking, kind of giving it space and grace, right? Like, okay, was this really a failure, or is it just that it didn't land where you thought or hoped, right?
Yeah.
And then when it is just a massive failure, like kind of also giving you some space and grace. It's like, okay, well, why? What happened, right? And looking at it from a point of view is that I'm not necessarily the failure, right? Something somewhere along the way failed. What was it?
Right.
Was it a lack of research? Was it a timing thing? Was it a financial thing? Like, what went into it? Because usually it's several things at play for something to be categorized as like a failure, right? So it's then kind of being objective about, okay, how much of that was my fault? And why was it that way? What do I do to prevent that from happening in the future? Like those lessons that you learned the hard way, right? It's those moments that you think back to your career and you go, oh my God, it's so embarrassing. It still embarrasses you to think about them, It's like 10 years later and you find yourself thinking about them and you're like, oh, I'm still mortified. It's but it's like, well, what was the lesson in that? What was the takeaway in that? And then kind of still just giving yourself the space and the grace to try again,
Well, and honestly, some of those massive failures have led to things that were way better than what I was planning in the first place. Way better. But I couldn't have seen how to get from there to here. Right. Without that.
Yeah. Usually what ends up happening too is that whatever you learned because something didn't go how you hoped is then, like you were saying, whatever you learned as a result of that failure lets you then jump. And it's not necessarily even from that one thing. Let's like, this is the project you failed at, right? Yeah. You learned these lessons and this is your next project, not related, but the lessons you learned here allows this project to then catapult to places you didn't think it would even go, right? It's not because like, okay, when I do this project again, or I reissue this, then it's like, it actually helped you in this one. And you wouldn't have never known that. You would have never seen that coming,
That is so true. That whole idea of, I think failing bravely and radical bravery is so important, especially to people breaking in, minorities, women, all kinds of folks. Even if it's just early career, you've got to break in somewhere. Yeah. You and I both had to do that. And it sounds so trite when I say you've got to be scared and do it anyway. But the truth is, you got to be kind of scared and do it anyway.
Anyways, yeah.
And it sounds like that's the mantra you've
Yeah.
had too. You've used
Yeah.
too.
For sure. I think sometimes, I've been known to say that to people. It's like, I know you're scared, you just got to do it anyway. So I know it's hard. I usually say, I know it's hard, you just got to do it anyways. And I think sometimes people are like, will cough it up to like, oh, well, you can just do it. You're whatever. And they'll attribute whatever characteristic they think is your magic, whatever, with magic widget. Oh, it's you're in HR, or you talk, or you, whatever, you have black hair, whatever. What doesn't matter? It's whatever they think it is, right? It doesn't have really kind of anything to do with you. It's whatever they think is your magic token. Like, oh, well, you can do that, but I can't. And
that
I think
will save them from needing to do something
for
uncomfortable.
having to do it.
Right.
And I think if you find yourself in those moments, or at least when I have found myself in those moments of being like scared to do something, I have to tie it back to something that actually doesn't have anything to do with me, right? If you tie it back to, okay, I'm really scared right now. I know I need to do this thing, but it needs to be bigger than me. Somehow you find that push that you need to kind of bring you through.
Give me an example of that.
Sure. So I'm going to caveat this with, I work with really, really good guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So I do work with a group of really good guys. Right. But it's kind of just one of those things where it's like, they're just oblivious, right? They're oblivious of what it's like to kind of be a woman in the workplace, in finance, right? Especially when you're dealing with a certain sector of guys. And we're in a group. It's a group of all the senior leaders. It's me and one other woman. I'm the only minority, and it's me and just one other woman. And it's a pretty important decision. It's a pretty heated discussion. And everybody's kind of just, going at it, right? Everyone's just kind of fending for themselves and taking their own turns. And somebody asked the other woman, what do you think? And this woman, by personality, by character, is very kind of soft-spoken and timid. And 2 seconds out into her response, she got spoken over. And that made me so mad, right? That I was like, excuse me, could you please let her finish? Could you please give her the space to finish? I would have never done that for myself. I would never have dared, right? But the doing it for her gave me the push to kind of say, no, you don't talk over women when it's their turn. Like, you give them the space to finish, right? And everybody was kind of like, oh, we're so sorry. Like, they didn't realize, right? Though they were like embarrassed, like, oh my God, so sorry. Yeah. And they, gave her back the floor. And, when I saw them do that, I was like, that worked.
I can do that again.
I've never done that for myself, but wow, and then I did start to do it for myself, and I did start to do it for other women in the room. And then it just became like, it's like, the cliche thing of like building the muscle. And then it's like, okay, that was super scary. And other people would say, oh, but you could do it. You were the head of HR. I was like, no, because I wasn't doing it, even though I was the head of HR. But when I had to do it for somebody else, I could do it. And then I could start doing it for myself and other people.
Interesting. As I know you've talked quite a bit too about making sure that this is a better place, that the workplace, not just MFA, but the workplace is a better place for everyone who comes behind us. What do you feel like you're doing now that is paving that way? And what advice do you give to those who are coming up through the ranks?
I feel like, I'm not saying anything new, and I wish I was saying something so like, profound.
I think
it's just like,
reiteration is sometimes so important when people hear it and see it in authentic humans who are in it, dealing with it.
I think it's mostly listen, right? Because for as much as I'm a chatter, I really like to listen to what people are saying, and listen to more than what's coming out of their mouth. Right? Yeah. What's the tone? What's the body language? Like, what are you picking up? What's between the lines? Like, is someone saying to you, yeah, I'm ecstatic, everything here is great, or is it like, I'm ecstatic, everything here is great, like, what are you picking up? What do you like, really listen, like really tune into the person, because that's how you're going to figure out what is needed to leave the place better than what you found it, and I think if you come up with an idea that you think is going to be better as a result of listening to the people in your organization, push through your fear, because you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for kind of like that greater good, which sounds like so cheesy, but it's like really what you do. Like, I'm listening to myself and I'm like, that sounds so cheesy, but it's legit what you do as an HR person, or at least my brand of HR, at least what I do. I think that's how you
And as a strong leader, I think if you approach it with that, then you can, people respect you.
Yeah, because it comes from an authentic place, because you're taking it real, from a real person, a real perspective.
Absolutely. To those climbing the ladder behind you, what do you say?
Buckle in.
Yep. Hang on tight, baby girl.
It's not easy, but it's worth the fight, because
Yeah.
I think it depends on why you want to climb, right? Like I'm driven by, I want to climb because the higher I go, the more I can help, the bigger my reach of help, the bigger the impact I can make. Right. And I think in the beginning, you just want to learn and you just want to make more money and you kind of want to show off the title. And that's kind of what you're motivated by in the beginning. And then you get to a certain point where you're kind of like, all right, what am I about?
Yeah.
What's there's only so much money. There's only so much title. What am I about?
Yeah.
And for me,
and what do I leave behind? What do
I leave behind? And that for me, when I got to that place, I was kind of like, it's okay. I'm good with, I'm good with that. So what's the bigger why? What's the bigger impact? What can I do that's bigger than me?
I love it. I love it. Approaching every day that way.
Yeah.
Jen, you are absolutely fantastic. And I would actually love to have you back again in the future.
If you can tolerate me, I will be here.
Oh, I think if I wasn't in Idaho and you weren't in New York, we would be sitting down for coffee very soon. We'll just have to do that virtually now.
I will be here.
Love it. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Molly.